So I'm sure by now you've heard that a lot of rappers are coming forward saying that they're actually Israelites, such as Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West, Kodak Black, and maybe you've even heard that from some of your friends. So today we're going to find out if there's any biblical evidence that proves that Native Americans, Hispanics, and African Americans are actually descended from the Israelites from the Bible. Shalom, brothers and sisters. My name is Jonathan. This is Gathering the Sheep Ministries, where we're pretty much here to discuss Bible-related questions that you might have and dissect things based on scripture, the news, history, and overall make it very simple and easy for anybody to understand. So as we mentioned in the intro, today we're going to be discussing whether or not the claim that African Americans, Native Americans, and Hispanics are actually descended from the Israelites. There's been a bunch of rappers coming forward who are saying this. Kendrick Lamar said it on his most recent album, Damn, on the songs Fear and Yah. Also, Kanye West recently came forward saying that in one of his live stream videos that he knows that we're from the 12 tribes of Israel. Also, there's just been a lot of movement about it going forward. And me personally, I do believe that African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans do descend from the 12 tribes of Israel. So today we're going to just be diving into the scriptures and making it, Yah willing, very simple for anybody to understand and determine for themselves based on the scriptures if this is true. So we're going to be diving into several different verses, a little bit here, a little bit there, and trying to show and bring forth why a lot of us are coming into this truth and why a lot of us are believing this. So I also have my fiance Zenny here with me, and she's going to be doing the reading of the scriptures. So let's just go ahead and start. What I first want to do is, I'm sure a lot of people who are tuning into this video might not even know who the Israelites are or have any idea of the history behind that. So we're going to just paint the picture of where that comes from, including the origins, and just so you could have a clear picture of the history of the Israelites before we even dive into the present day. So as we know, our God, our Elohim, which is our Father Yah, He is the God or the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And these are the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel. So we're just going to go ahead and portray that in the scriptures. So we're going to start with Genesis chapter 17, starting at verse 1 through 8. And this is going to tell us who Abraham is.
Genesis 17 verse 1. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, Yah appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty Elohim, walk before me and be thou perfect.
So the one who of the patriarchs, the first one who the Father appeared unto was Abram.
Verse 2. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. So this covenant, which belongs to the 12 tribes of Israel, this original covenant, was first given to Abram. 3. And Abram fell on his face, and Elohim talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. So the Father Yah is telling Abram that he's now going to have this blessing where he's going to be the father of many nations, and his seed is going to be multiplied, and the world will be blessed through him. Verse 5. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee. So this is the first time where we're seeing that Abram now becomes Abraham, which is the name that we all know the patriarch to be called by. Verse 6. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. 7. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, and their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. So the Father is telling Abraham that he's going to have an everlasting covenant with Abraham and his seed after him. So this covenant is even up until this day, and this covenant is given to the 12 tribes of Israel. That's who's holding this covenant up until this point. Verse 8. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession, and I will be their Elohim.
So the land of Israel was originally occupied by these people called the Canaanites. And before the Israelites went into that land after they were slaves in Egypt, they had to get rid of these Canaanites. But the Father promised Abraham long before that even happened that this land was going to be inheritance for the children of Israel, which today, Yah willing, we're going to bring forward are the Hispanics, African Americans, and Native Americans. But we see that this covenant first started with the father Abraham. Now we're going to see the origins of the next patriarch, which is Isaac. So let's go ahead and go to Genesis chapter 21, and we're going to be reading verses 1 through 3.
Genesis 21 verse 1. And Yah visited Sarah as he had said, and Yah did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which Elohim had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac.
So Sarah, which was the wife of Abraham, was barren for many years, and the father came unto her and told her in her old age that she was going to have a seed, which was Isaac. And we knew that this was promised because the father had made a covenant with Abraham that his seed would be multiplied. So Isaac is the next heir to that covenant after Abraham. So first our two patriarchs are Abraham, then we have Isaac, and now we're going to discuss our next patriarch, which is Jacob, who later became Israel. So let's go ahead and go to Genesis 25, and we're going to be reading chapter 21 through 34. So this is going to be a bit longer.
Genesis chapter 25 verse 21. And Isaac entreated Yah for his wife, because she was barren, and Yah was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived.
So we see that Isaac's wife Rebekah was also barren for a long time too. This is actually a picture of what the Father did with the Messiah, how he was born of a virgin. So we see that when it comes to our patriarchs, there was also a miraculous birth involved as well, where the matriarchs would give birth to their seed after being in their old age, which is a miraculous sign that only the Father could do. So continue.
22. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, If it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of Yah.
So we see that Rebekah was pregnant with two children. She was going to have twins, which became Esau and our patriarch Jacob. And while these kids were in her womb, while the babies were in her womb, they were already struggling within her womb. So this actually later reflected on even up into this day, where the descendants of Esau are always struggling and fighting with the descendants of Jacob, which are the Israelites.
Verse 23. And Yah said unto her, Two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. So the Father made a prophecy to Sarah when she went to inquire of him as to why she was having this pain within her womb. And he told her that this was going to result in two nations, and that one was going to be greater than the other, and one would serve the other. 24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red, all over like an hairy garment. And they called his name Esau. So Esau was actually the firstborn. And as we know, in biblical times, the firstborn was the heir. So the oldest child, he'd be the one who inherit the blessing. So in this case, technically speaking, Esau was supposed to be the inheritor of that covenant that the Father made with Abraham and then with Isaac. So let's see how that inheritance transferred from Esau then to Jacob. Continue. Verse 26. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel. And his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents.
So we see that Esau, which was the older brother, the older one of the twins, he liked going out into the field. He liked hunting. He was more so an outdoors man, whereas Jacob preferred to stay inside, and he was more of a quiet person. He was more so about being with family, whereas Esau wanted to go outside and do his own thing.
Verse 28. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob.
So Esau and Jacob's father, which was Isaac, loved the older son Esau more because Esau would go out and hunt and kill deers and get venison for Isaac. And so Isaac, in the flesh, preferred Esau even though he was the wicked son, simply because he liked eating the food that he would hunt for.
29. And Jacob sawed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom.
So we see that one day Esau went out and he was hunting, doing what he loves to do, and he came inside and he was faint. He was real hungry, and Jacob was making a pot of stew, lentil stew. And so Esau went to him and he's saying, Give me some of that stew, I'm really hungry.
And Jacob said, Sell me this day thy birthright.
So Jacob is telling Esau, look, if you want to eat some of this stew, then you got to sell me your birthright, which we know the inheritance, that birthright was the covenant with the father, which included the land of Canaan and overall having that blessing from the father, which meant that your seed was going to be multiplied and that the whole world will be blessed through your seed.
And Esau said, Behold, I am at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me?
So Esau's like, I'm about to die, I'm so hungry. What do I care about this birthright?
And Jacob said, Swear to me this day. And he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob.
So we see that Esau, over a pot of stew because he was hungry, sold the everlasting covenant that the Father Yah had given unto Abraham and then Isaac over soup. He sold his birthright for soup to Jacob.
Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So
the word says that Esau despised his birthright because something that was so great, something that was so valuable, really infinitely valuable, such as the everlasting covenant with our Father, with our Elohim, with our God, Esau didn't care about it. He sold it simply for one meal. So that's how Jacob received the inheritance over his older brother. So just to summarize so far, we see that the Father Elohim Yah, he made an everlasting covenant with Abraham, and then that covenant was inherited by Abraham's son Isaac, and now that covenant was inherited by Jacob because his brother Esau sold it to him for a pot of soup. So let's figure out how Jacob, our patriarch, became called Israel. So let's go to Genesis chapter 35, and we're going to be reading verses 9 through 12.
Genesis 35 verse 9. And Elohim appeared unto Jacob again, when he came out of Paddan Aram, and blessed him. And Elohim said unto him, Thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel.
So we see that the Father appeared unto him, and he told Jacob, your name's not going to be Jacob anymore. Your name is going to be called Israel. So this is where we get the 12 tribes of Israel and the word Israelite from. And also the land of Canaan, when the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob came into that land, they renamed it Israel after their father Jacob, whose name was changed by the father.
Verse 11. And Elohim said unto him, I am Elohim Almighty, be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. And the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed after thee I will give the land.
So that covenant that was initially given to Abraham was then given to Isaac, and then was supposed to be given to Esau, but was given to Jacob. Now Elohim is confirming that covenant with Jacob when he changed his name over to Israel. So now we're about to finish this portion of the study, and we're going to see who are the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel, which we're going to learn are actually the 12 sons of Jacob. So let's go ahead and scroll down to verse 22 and 26 of this same chapter.
Now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun.
So Jacob had 4 wives, and these first set of sons come from his wife Leah.
The sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin.
So Rachel and Leah were sisters. Leah had Simeon, Reuben, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. And Rachel, which was her sister, had Joseph and Benjamin. 25.
And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali.
So at one point, Rachel, she was barren, just as Rebecca and just as Sarah were before her. And so what she did at that point was she gave Jacob her handmaid Bilhah as a wife, so that Bilhah could bear a seed for Rachel.
And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Paddan Aram.
So Leah eventually did the same thing because her womb had gone barren after a few years as well, and she wasn't bearing any more seed. So what she did was she gave Jacob her handmaid as well, which was Zilpah, and she bore Gad and Asher for Leah. So just to confirm, the 12 patriarchs, or the 12 sons of Jacob, who was renamed Israel, are Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. So this is where we get the 12 tribes of Israel. They are the sons of Jacob, and Jacob was the son of Isaac, and Isaac was the son of Abraham. So now we kind of have a bit of a background as to where the 12 tribes of Israel come from. And that's the historical, biblical, scriptural side of it. So now I want to talk about the physical appearance of the Israelites based on the scriptures. Because a lot of you are probably thinking, well, you know, I've seen the people in modern Israel. I know a few Jewish people and they're all white. So how could it be that now Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West, and so forth are coming forward saying that black people, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the Israelites, but they're not white? So let's see what the Bible describes the physical appearance of the Israelites as. So we're going to go to Exodus chapter 2. And we're going to start at verse 16 through 19.
Now the priest of Midian has 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock.
Okay, so at this point, what we're seeing this story portray is Moses, who was the one who ended up leading the 12 tribes of Israel out of Egypt from slavery. He had fled Egypt at one point because he murdered a man. So now we're going to see, this is telling us when he first met his wife and how he met them. He had fled to this land called Midian. Go ahead.
And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them, and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel their father, he said, How is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock.
So we see that these people, these shepherds who saw Moses, thought that he was an Egyptian. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who say that the Egyptians were white, but common sense tells you that they weren't, being that Egypt is in the land of Africa. And for anybody who's in the know, ancient Egypt was actually called by another name. It was called Kemet, which literally translates to black land. So the land of the black people, in other words. So if these shepherds are mistaking Moses as an Egyptian, that would imply that he also had a dark skin tone as well. So because if he was white, you know, as modern Israel is, then they wouldn't say that he was an Egyptian. They'd say, oh man, a Greek helped us, or oh man, an Italian helped us, or whatever. So we see that he must have had a dark skin. So let's get a second witness for that. Let's go to Exodus 4, and we're going to be reading verses 6 through 8.
And Yah said furthermore unto him, Put now thy hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow.
So what this is describing is when the Father appeared unto Moses, he told Moses that he was going to have to go free the children of Israel out of bondage in Egypt. And Moses was going to have to go speak with the Pharaoh who was holding his people in slavery. And one of the signs that the Father told Moses to do to get the Pharaoh to believe that Elohim had sent him was to stick his hand into his bosom or his shirt. And when it would come out, it would be leprous as snow, which means white as snow. Now, if he was already white, how much of a sign would it be if he's sticking his hand in his shirt and then it comes out white? It wouldn't be a sign at all. So this implies that Moses was of a darker skin tone, thus it being a great sign when it became white. Go ahead.
7. And he said, Put thy hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
So we see here that his hand, when he stuck it into his bosom, became leprous as snow, or white as snow. But then when he stuck it out, it became as the rest of his body. So that would imply that the rest of his body was not white as snow. So we see here that Moses looked like an Egyptian, which meant that he was black. And also, as a sign for him to show the Pharaoh that he was sent by Elohim, he stuck his hand to his shirt and it became white, which was different from all of the rest of his skin, which was dark. So let's get one more witness of this. And now we're actually going to show that our Messiah, Yeshua or Yahoshua, or as the world calls him, Jesus, was also of a dark skin tone as well. So we're going to go to Revelation chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 14 and 15.
Revelation chapter 1, verse 14. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as flame of fire.
So we see that they're describing the Messiah as having hair like wool, and we all know that wool is a more coarse texture. It's more in accordance to what you would see an African American, a so-called black person, have. We know that white people typically have straight hair that's more stringy. So we know that he doesn't appear the way that he's portrayed today with the blonde hair, blue eyes. Let's keep going.
15. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters.
So we all know that brass is more of a dark brownish color, but they're equating the Messiah's skin tone with burned brass, which means it's even darker than that brown that original brass is. So he would have been a very dark color. So we see that not only was Moses dark, but we also see that the Messiah was dark. So that lets us know that the 12 tribes of Israel were initially a dark people, not white like how they're portrayed today. So now we've gone through the history of the 12 tribes of Israel, and we've also showed the physical appearance of them. Now we're going to get into what most people talk about when they're describing why blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the 12 tribes of Israel. We're going to talk about the blessings and the curses which are supposed to be on the children of Israel forever if they're disobeying the commandments that the Father gave us. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 28. And we're going to be skimming around this chapter. It's very long, but we're going to be pretty much talking about all the main points as to why we believe that the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the Israelites. And I think that once we go through all these scriptures, it's going to be pretty clear, Yah willing, to you as well as to why we believe this and why so many people are coming into this truth in this day and time. So we're going to go ahead and start at verse 1.
And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yah thy Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that Yah thy Elohim will set thee on high above all nations of the earth.
So we see here that what's being described is these are blessings and curses that the children of Israel would receive if they obeyed the Father's commandments when they went into the land of Israel, or if they disobeyed the Father's commandments when they went into the land of Israel. This is Moses giving this speech to the children of Israel before they actually go into the land. This is after they had come out of Egypt, but before they had inherited that birthright, which was the land of Canaan. And he's saying here that they would be blessed above all nations if they kept these commandments. So let's go ahead and go down to verse 3.
Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field.
So in other words, wherever you go, you're going to be blessed. So when you're working, you'll be blessed. When you're at home, you'll be blessed if you follow his commandments. Let's go ahead and go to verse 7.
Yah shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way and flee before thee 7 ways.
So he's promising the children of Israel that if they obey his commandments, anytime somebody comes against them, regardless of whether it's Babylonians, Greeks, Egyptians, so forth, when they come to attack you, you're going to fight them and they're going to be smitten so hard that they're going to flee 7 ways. Okay, let's go ahead and go to verse 10.
And all the people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of Yah, and they shall be afraid of thee.
So he's telling the children of Israel that if you obey these commandments, the Torah, the law, statutes, and commandments, that everybody in the world will know that you belong to Elohim, and they're going to fear you. They're going to be afraid of you. They're not going to want to mess with you because they know that you are the children of the Most High God, the Most High Elohim. All right, so let's go ahead and read verse 11 through 14.
And Yah shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy ground, in the land which Yah sware unto thy fathers to give thee.
So it says here that the children of Israel will be blessed in the fruit of thy body, which means that their children would also be blessed. Every generation would have riches, they'd have a place to live, they'd have their own land. They wouldn't have to worry about poverty because the Father would look out for them. Their land would be blessed. They'd be able to get the most crops. They'd be able to ultimately live a good life.
Verse 12. Yah shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven to give rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thy hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow.
So we have a few different points in this verse. So we see that the Father is promising the children of Israel that if they do keep the commandments, that the land will be very plentiful because it's going to have its rain in due season, which means that Israel would not be like the desert that it is today, but would be more in line with the Garden of Eden and be rich and plentiful. It also says here that he would bless the work of our hands. So whenever we open a business, or whenever we are going to school, or in anything that we try to do, we'd be blessed in that regard. And it also says that the children of Israel would lend to many nations and never borrow, which means that the children of Israel would be able to buy a house without having to go to the bank to get a mortgage. We'd be able to own everything that we have, and people would have to look to the children of Israel for money whenever they needed to be bailed out or whenever they needed anything, because the children of Israel would be the lenders and never the borrowers. Okay, 14?
13?
Or, 13.
And Yah shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if that thou hearken unto the commandments of Yah thy Elohim, which I command thee this day to observe and to do them.
So he's telling the children of Israel that if they follow those commandments, they'll always be on top. They'll never have to answer to another nation or have to have somebody who's above them. They'll always be the superpower of the world. So if the children of Israel did follow the commandments, right now all blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, we'd be the leading nation above all the world. But we see that the children of Israel didn't. Thus they were exiled from that land, and thus they were led into captivity. So let's continue reading.
14. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them.
So if the children of Israel wanted these blessings, which we see are to be the top nation, to be blessed in the city and the field, for our children to be blessed, to have riches, to have a great land, they could not turn to the left nor right in any of these commandments. They'd have to keep every law, statute, and commandment that the Father gave to them this day. So now we're going to get into the curses of Deuteronomy 28, which are the penalties if the children of Israel didn't keep the commandments, which we know they didn't because they were eventually exiled from the land of Israel. And these next few scriptures are the main reason why a lot of people believe that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the children of Israel, because these curses line up with so many of the conditions that our people are facing today. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Read verse 15.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yah thy Elohim, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So once again, whereas all those blessings would fall on the children of Israel if they obeyed, all these curses which are going to be listed now are going to fall on the children if they disobey. So read verse 16.
Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field.
So wherever the children of Israel are, they're going to be cursed if they're not keeping the commandments. So it doesn't matter if you're at your house, doesn't matter if you're at your job, doesn't matter if you move to another city, another country. Every single place that you go, you're going to be persecuted, you're going to be in poverty, you're going to be living paycheck to paycheck because you are not following the commandments that the Father Yah gave to your ancestors before they inherited the land of Israel. Let's read verse 18.
Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind and the flocks of thy sheep.
So in other words, your children will be cursed after you. So a lot of times, blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, we have these children and they end up getting arrested. They drop out of school. They have problems with hanging out with the wrong people and so forth. And we look and we're like, man, I'm a good person. I go to church on Sunday. I pay all my bills. Why did my kids come out like that? And that's because our ancestors were not following the commandments. Thus, our kids are cursed in the same ways that we are. All right. Verse 20.
Yah shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me.
So the Father Yah is saying that we're going to be cursed, we're going to be vexed, and we're going to be rebuked in everything that we do. So if we try to open a business, it's going to fail. If we try to succeed in one way, it's going to fail. If we're going for that promotion, somebody's going to get it above us. It's always going to seem like we're getting the short end of the stick. And the reason why is because we're not following the commandments of our Father. We might get ahead a little bit, but eventually it's going to come yet to another setback. All right.
And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron.
So in other words, what this means is that the sky above you is going to be metal. It's going to be with iron and brass. So that means when you say a prayer, it's not going to go straight to heaven. It's not going to go straight to his throne because it's going to be hitting that metal wall. So that's why a lot of times it feels like your prayers are going unanswered. That's why a lot of times, our grandparents or our elders may have been going to church for 40 and 50 years, but yet they're still living in the projects, yet they still don't own the house that they live in, or are behind on their bills or are in debt. And our prayers seem to be going unanswered despite the fact that we feel like we're serving the Most High. It's because our heaven has now become a heaven of brass. All right, let's go to verse 25.
Yah shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
So whereas when the children of Israel were obeying, if any country tried to attack them, their enemies would flee 7 ways and scatter. But now it's saying that because the children disobeyed, whenever they go into war with somebody, they're going to be the ones who are scattering. They're going to be the ones who are fleeing and ultimately lose that battle. And it says here that they shall be removed into all kingdoms of the earth, which means that they're going to be scattered across the whole world. Everywhere that you can visit, there's going to be an Israelite there, and they're going to be under poverty and persecution. All right, let's go to verse 23. I'm sorry, to 26. Verse 26. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away.
So whenever you look in the Bible and it says the beasts of the field, a lot of times it's referring to actually other nations or other groups of people who are hostile towards you. So when it's saying here that your carcass shall be meat unto the beast, it means that you're going to be able to be killed, shot, and your carcass will lay there and nobody's going to come to save you. It says right here that no man shall fray them away. So this is why a lot of times you'll see that people of color, blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, we could get shot right in the street and nobody will even care. Nobody will even lift a finger. That's why we see situations where police are able to kill our people and then get acquitted despite the fact that it was recorded on camera, or any situation like that, because we disobey the commandments, thus our lives mean nothing. That's why we have to have a movement like Black Lives Matter, which ultimately ends up doing nothing. There's nothing that could change the situation that we're in unless we follow the commandments that the Father has laid out for us in this Bible. All right? Now we're going to go to verse 28 through 34.
Yah shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart.
So madness and blindness, in other words, ignorance. So we're going to be ignorant as to the reason as to why these things are happening to us. So a lot of times we see our brothers and sisters and, we're in these poor situations. We can't seem to excel or to be better than the previous generation. And we have no idea why. What reason should a Black, Hispanic, or Native American person not have success in comparison to somebody else? It's because we're stricken with this madness and we're blind and we have astonishment of heart, meaning we're shocked by these things, but we have no way to change them. All right, 29.
And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore.
So it says, thou shalt grope at noonday, as the gropeth blind in darkness. So in other words, you're confused. You don't know which way to go. Even in the daytime, you have no sense of direction, just like somebody who's trying to move around in the dark. You have no way of making your life better. It says, thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. So everything that you do, it doesn't matter if you get a law degree or so forth, you're always going to be at the bottom and there's always going to be somebody ahead of you, no matter how much you try to succeed. It says, thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore. So our people are constantly oppressed. We're in the worst neighborhoods. We're on food stamps, government assistance, welfare. We get the worst jobs. I live in New York City, and a lot of times whenever I go into a fast food restaurant or a place that I'm getting food for lunch, all the time, all I ever see is Hispanic and Black cashiers. We're the ones picking up the floor. And this is everywhere, every single country in the world. And it says that we're going to be spoiled evermore, which means that everything that we have is going to be taken from us. And this even goes to our ideas. If you look at a lot of the great American inventions or a lot of the innovations that come in the world, they were invented by a person of color, a Black person, a Hispanic person. But these ideas get stolen from us and we don't get any of the riches from it. We don't get any of the credit for it. It goes to somebody else with a better name or somebody else who's more wealthy. And this is because we don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments that the Father set for us. All right?
And no man shall save thee.
No man shall save us. So in other words, we're in this situation and we're looking to people like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Barack Obama to come and to be a Messiah to us and to save us out of this situation. But what happens? They never end up doing anything. A lot of people thought that the country was going to change for the better when Obama became president and that the situation for minorities would improve. But we see now it's worse than ever. And now we see even more so that people are being killed in the street and no justice is coming. It's because nobody can save us but the Father. Nobody can save us but our Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. All right?
30. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her.
So in other words, you could have a wife and somebody's going to be able to sleep with her and rape her. This is reminiscent of slavery. A guy could have his wife and next thing you know, his kids are coming out looking a lot lighter than him because of the slave master. Or even when we look at the Hispanics like Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, etc. Originally, our ancestors were Native Americans, but yet the Europeans came and slept with all of our women and then made these mixed breed children. So we're gonna have a wife and the slave master can take her at any point and do whatever he wants with her.
Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein.
This is just like the White House. I mean, our people built the White House, yet there's a white man living in it, So it's like we'll go ahead and we'll do the labor behind a lot of these things. We'll build these corporate buildings. We'll build these fancy houses like you see a lot of the Mexicans. They're usually the ones behind the construction, but yet we can't afford to live within these houses that we're building.
Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
So just like I was saying, how the Mexicans build the houses but can't live in them, it's the same thing with the fruits. A lot of our fruits that are grown across the country, they're picked by minority hands, but yet we're not the ones who are reaping the benefits of it. It's other people who actually own that land.
Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee.
So a lot of people look at these scriptures and they're like, I don't have an ox, I don't have a donkey. But what we need to realize is we need to put this in context. So 3,000 or 4,000 years ago when this was written, oxes and donkeys were means of transportation. So it says here that the ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof, or thine ass shall be violently taken away. So this is just like our cars. We'll go ahead and we'll finance a car, we'll lease a car, and then we're not able to pay for it, and then it's taken from us. Or how we'll end up having all these tickets or not even be able to get a loan for our car. Essentially, this is saying that we're going to have issues with our transportation, and I can personally attest to that. I've had to pay thousands of dollars just to be able to clear my license. So these curses are definitely still remaining to this day.
Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them.
So your cattle, your goods shall be given to somebody else. It'll be taken from you, and you won't be able to do anything about it. Nobody will be able to stop it.
32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look, and fail with longing for them, all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand.
So it's saying here that our children would be taken from us and we'd be able to do nothing about it. I mean, let's look at slavery times. A lot of times the slave masters, they take the children from the parents and then go sell them, and they'd never see each other again. But this still even reflects up into this day with child services, where they'll go into a house that they don't deem fit and they'll snatch your kid from you. Or even a lot of times with relationships where you might have a mother to your kid and now she steals your kid and you can't see that kid anymore, or vice versa, and you can't do anything about it.
33. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed away.
So it says the fruit of thy lands and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. So this is reflecting of the Native Americans, how they were in this land, and out of nowhere we have Europeans coming and taking this land, and all of the work that they did in cultivating this land and making it their own, it didn't matter now. Now it's serving another people. In Nevada, they're still using the water systems that the Native Americans created. Europeans are now reaping the benefits of something that children of Israel did, and the children of Israel are getting no revenue from that.
34. So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see.
So you're always going to be looking around at the things that are going on with your people, and it's going to make you so upset. A lot of times it seems like every time I go on Facebook, I'm seeing a new black person, a new Hispanic person getting shot and killed by a police officer, and there's nothing that I can do about it, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. It doesn't matter how much we march in the fields or march in the streets or go out and stand before a politician's office. Nothing is changing. We're still going to be murdered. We're still going to be persecuted. And it'll make us go mad. And this is because we're not following the commandments of the Father. Who else fits these descriptions? Now let's read verse 36 through 39.
Yah shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shall thou serve other gods, wood and stone. So
in other words, we're going to be brought to be servants unto a nation that we never knew. I mean, this applies to all the children of Israel. Look at blacks, how they were brought from the west coast of Africa to a place that they had nothing to do with, all the way on the other side of the world, and now they're slaves to the Europeans. Look at Native Americans who were minding their own business on this side of the world, and then Europeans came and took them as slaves. So a people that we didn't know, that spoke a language that we didn't know, went, and now we're servants of them. 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations whither Yah shall lead thee. A proverb and a byword. So look at what our people are referred to as. Native Americans. Amerigo Vespucci was a European who came here way after the indigenous people were living here, and yet the indigenous people are called after him. Hispanic, that literally means owned by Spain. Black, that's just a color. How can you be, as a group of people, referred to as a color? We're called by names that don't properly describe us. When we look at every other nation in the world, what they're described as, the name for them is the country that they're from. So Chinese people are from China. British people are from Britain. Irish people are from Ireland. Italians are from Italy. Where in the world is the country black? How can you be called by simply a color? It doesn't make any sense. But that's because we're called by a proverb and a byword, because we didn't follow the law, statutes, and commandments. All right?
38. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it.
So this says that we shall carry much seed out into the field, but gather little in. So that's essentially saying that we're going to work really hard, but get nothing from it. How many of our mothers are maids, are servitude positions, and they go and they're working 12 and 13 and 14-hour shifts, yet come home with the $200 check after 2 weeks? Or you might go to your job and feel like you're slaving away, you're working so hard, and you come home and you have no time for anything else because you're so tired, and yet your paycheck is so little. We work the hardest, but we get paid the least.
39. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them.
So in other words, we're gonna be doing a lot of work, working really hard, but we're not gonna see any of the spoils of it. So a lot of these huge companies like Walmart, for example, it's all minority workers there, but yet they're getting paid $7.25. Same thing with Disney in Orlando, Florida. We have family that lives there. A lot of the employees are all minorities, blacks, Hispanics, and so forth, and yet they're getting paid a wage like $10 an hour, which you can't even really live on. Okay, 41. Let's now go to 41.
Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. So this applies to the past, and it even applies to present. So in slave times, where a couple might have some children, but then they're sold away to another slave master to never be seen again. But that even applies up until today, where a mother and a father might have a kid, but then that kid goes to jail over a petty crime, and now they're in captivity. Now they're slaves. So our children are taken from us, not at our own will. All right, let's go to 43 through 57. Verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low.
So when we look at America, for example, right? Black people have been here since the foundation of this country. Native Americans have been here since the foundations of this country, yet they're at the bottom, yet they're still in poverty, yet they don't own any land, they don't own any property. Yet a Chinese person could come here and 10 years later own a big business and own several houses. An Arab person can come here and own several houses and several businesses and be successful in such a short period of time, when blacks and Native Americans have been here for hundreds of years and have nothing to show for it. This is always happening, and it happens up to this day.
44. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
So foreigners come here, and now they're the ones lending to us. Now we're the ones who have to work for them when they just came here 5 years ago. It doesn't make any sense.
45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenedest not unto the voice of Yah thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee.
And I'm here to tell you that the reason why all these things are happening to us is because we're not following the commandments. Just because we go to church on Sunday, or just because we say that we're saved and sanctified by Jesus Christ, does not mean that we're following the commandments. If we were, then we'd be all the way at the top of the world.
46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign, and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
So this is how we know that the Native Americans, Hispanics, and blacks are the children of Israel, because these signs are on us up until this day. There is nobody else on this earth who fits all these curses like the way that we do. 47.
Because thou servest not Yah thy Elohim with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which Yah shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness and in want of all things.
So it says here that because we didn't follow the commandments, we're going to have to serve our enemies. We're going to have to serve our persecutors, and we're going to be hungry, so we're not going to have any food. We're going to have to be on food stamps. We're going to be thirsty, and we're going to be in our nakedness. So the bare essentials, which is food, water, shelter, and clothing, we're going to lack.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee.
A yoke of iron, slavery, bondage. If you look at old images of our people during slave times, of blacks, Native Americans, etc., they would literally put chains around our neck. And even up to this day, they're still chained around our wrists and our feet. But now, instead of it being in a cotton field, it's in a prison.
Verse 49. Yah shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as an eagle flieth.
What is the mascot of America? Isn't it the bald eagle? So it says here that a nation from the end of the earth as swift as an eagle. So this is a metaphor. This is a metaphor of the nation. That eagle represents that nation. So we see that this is referring to America. America's going to come against us. And it says, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. When Europeans came and took Africans from that land and brought them over here, they didn't speak the language that the Europeans spoke. And same thing with the Native Americans. They could not communicate with each other because we did not understand the language of our persecutor.
50. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young.
In this country, here in America, there's no regard for old. When you're old, it's like you're useless. You're thrown away. You're cast aside. You're put into a retirement home where you can just rot and die. And it has no favor for the young either, because they'll take a kid who's 13, 14 years old and lock him up for the rest of his life, even though he's just a child. So this country has no regard for the elderly nor the young, especially if you're a black, Native American, or Hispanic.
51. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee.
So when we look at Native Americans, like I said previously, everything that they work so hard to do, and even up until this day, everything that we work so hard to do, it's for somebody else. It's not for us.
Verse 52. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down. wherein thou trusted throughout all thy land.
So in other words, even if we get a great neighborhood and we fortify it, we have our own doctors, we have our own lawyers, we have our own schools, they're going to come and destroy that. Look at Black Wall Street, which was a black-owned city that literally white people came and bombed and destroyed. So it doesn't matter where we go, it doesn't matter how much we come together or stack up our money, eventually it's going to be taken from us and destroyed.
And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which Yah thy Elohim hath given thee. 53. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which Yah Elohim hath given thee.
So in other words, we're going to be so poor and lacking that we're going to have to eat our own children. How we can relate this to modern times is that a lot of times we don't even have food for both our children and us to eat. So then what happens is that it's either you go hungry or they go hungry.
In the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee.
54.
So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave. So
it says that even the most gentle man, he's going to be hostile towards his own brother. How much black on black crime do we see? How much times do we see Hispanics killing one another? It says that he's going to be hostile towards his own woman. How much domestic violence is going on in our houses? And it says that he shall be hostile towards his children, which he shall leave. Who else on this planet leaves their kids as much as our people do? Chinese people, they stay with their kids. Arabs stay with their kids. Whites stay with their kids. Indian people stay with their kids. Only blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans have it where most of the time the father is not present within the child's life. Nobody else on earth fits all these curses.
55. So that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat.
So he shall not give anything to his children. How many brothers, even if they leave, don't even pay child support, don't even provide them with food, clothing, nothing?
Because he hath nothing left in him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. So
the reason why a lot of us don't give to our children after we've left them is because we have nothing to give them. We're poor ourselves.
56. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. So even the most delicate women, even our most beautiful women, they're hostile towards their man. They want nothing to do with their baby daddy, nothing to do with the father. They think that he's a joke. They go around trash talking him on Facebook, trash talking him everywhere, and they have no love and affection towards their children. They'd rather be out partying, clubbing, than spending time with their own kids. Or they'll pop out children by 4 or 5 different men. Who else on earth matches these curses? 57. And toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewithin thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates.
So even if the mother is not literally eating her kids, she's eating and taking the things that belong to them. She'll go in and spend her money on a new bag, on a new purse, rather than spending her money on providing for her children because she has no regard to them. Who else on this earth has such little regards for their family like blacks, Native Americans, and Hispanics? All right, let's now go to verse 63. We're almost done closing this out.
Verse 63. And it shall come to pass that as Yah rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you, so Yah will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it.
So whereas the Father was so happy to make us his possession, was so happy when he made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and our forefathers, the same amount of joy that he took in blessing us is the same amount of joy that he takes in cursing us. So we can't sit here and blame our conditions and blame our circumstances on the white man or on our oppressor. In fact, this is the Father himself who's putting this hand, who's putting this oppression on us. So if he's the one doing it, then we need to be pleading to him and not no governor, not no president, not no white man. It's the Father who we need to plead and beg to set us free.
Verse 64. And Yah shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
So it says that the children of Israel are going to be scattered everywhere. That's why you have blacks in Europe. That's why you have blacks in the Middle East and in China, and why you have Native Americans spread out all over. It's because we were scattered because we didn't obey the commandments. So now we can't live in the land of milk and honey because of our disobedience.
65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest.
So wherever we are in this world, we're never going to be at peace. It doesn't matter if you move to Atlanta, or if you move to California, or if you move even to Africa, where a lot of people want to move now. We're not going to have ease there. We're going to be oppressed. We're never going to fit in. We're never going to have prosperity no matter where we go. And it's because we don't follow the commandments that the Father gave to us.
But Yah shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind.
So wherever we go, we're always going to be depressed.
66. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life.
So, in other words, we're always going to be fearing for our well-being. We're always going to be fearing whether or not we're able to still stay in this apartment because we don't have enough money to pay for the rent. We're always going to fear when we walk down the street if a cop is going to pull up and shoot us, or whether or not our children are going to make it home from school that day, or whether or not we're going to make it home from work that day. We're always going to have a fear of our lives resting above us.
67. In the morning thou shalt say, Would Elohim it were even? And at even thou shalt say, Would Elohim it were morning?
So in other words, it doesn't matter what time of day it is. You're always going to be upset. So a lot of times we'll be at work and we'll be like, dang man, I wish I was home. I wish it was nighttime. When it comes nighttime, you're like, dang, I wish it was the daytime. It doesn't matter what point of the day it is. You're always going to feel down. You're always going to feel depressed. You're always going to feel upset.
For the fear of thine heart, wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see.
And the reason why we're going to feel this way is because of all the crazy things that's going on around us. How can you ever rest and be at peace when you know that somebody who looks just like you was just shot down and killed in the street and there was no justice for him? How can you as a parent feel at peace when you know that a young kid, that your son can be killed just like another parent's son was killed the other day, and there be no justice for him? You might not even be able to find out who the killer was. We'll never be at peace because all these fears are always right around the corner.
68. And Yah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
So the word for Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim. And Mitzrayim literally translates to bondage. So when it says here, and Yah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, it's not necessarily talking about the country Egypt. It's talking about that we're going to be led into bondage in ships. So this is reflecting of the transatlantic slave trade, where people from Africa were brought all the way across the world to a country they never knew, to slavery here by ships.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
So when the Father pulled us out of Egypt, he told us, you're never going to be slaves again. But because we disobeyed, here we are in this country with the minimal jobs, where technically we're not slaves because we get a wage, But that wage that we receive is literally just so that we can survive. How the heck can somebody live off of $8 an hour, $9 an hour, $10 an hour, or even $20 an hour? These are not living wages. So essentially, we're working simply so we can survive, which is slavery.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
So when it says no man shall buy you, that means no man shall redeem you. So essentially, we're going to be here as captives and nobody's going to come to save us. Why do you think civil rights didn't work? Why do you think Barack Obama didn't do anything for our people? It's because no man can save us. The only one who can redeem us is our Father Yah in heaven, is our Messiah, Yahushua HaMashiach, the Son of Elohim. So this shows us without a doubt that the Native Americans, blacks, and Hispanics are the children of Israel, because who else on earth matches all these scriptures? I can tell you right now that the modern Jews, the modern Israel, definitely don't fit this. It's only us, not the Chinese, not the Arabs, not the Indians, not the Europeans. Nobody matches these but us. So now, if you're watching this video, you have the option here as to what you want to do with this information. Either you can take it to heart and say, okay, I don't want to be in these conditions anymore. I want to go and I want to serve the Father. I'm going to follow these law, statutes, and commandments, and the Messiah is going to give me the faith and spirit to do so. Or you can simply decide that it means nothing to you. That choice is yours. But now you can't say that you don't know. So I hope that this video was informative. I hope that it highlighted a lot of things that you might have been uncertain of. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us in the comments. We're willingly going to be putting out more videos, expanding on a few more topics. And we hope to see you guys soon. Shalom.